Hello and welcome to Art Talk. I'm Laura Womack. Jen McHugh is our technical director.
Hi, everyone.
Deanna Botcher is our producer. She's off camera. Tonight we're talking with Chuck Fischer, who is having a long and varied career. Most recently, he's been focused on tableau reliefs, artwork that breaks the plane of two-dimensional art. He creates multi-surface pieces from hand-cut materials, finishes them with gesso and modeling paste to bring the surface of the work into conversation with its maze-like depth. Recently, Fischer has added trompe-l'oeil painting in some of his works to fool the viewer about what's real and what's painted. He enhances the visual mystery by hiding sections of the work behind layers, resulting in a play of perception and deception. And I'm going to share some fascinating highlights of Chuck's long career. Bear with me as there are a lot of cool accomplishments that we're going to talk about tonight. He has designs in the permanent collections of the Smithsonian's Cooper Hewitt Museum, the Smithsonian's Museum of American History, and the Artist Book Collection of the Library of Congress. He created signature tabletop collections for Lenox and wallpaper and fabric for Brunswick and Fee and Schumacher collections. And he designed and painted 4 holiday cards for the White House Historical Association, as well as exclusive lines of giftware. Chuck's oeuvre includes 9 pop-up books, such as Christmas in New York. His hand-painted murals grace the walls of some of the finest residences across the United States and Europe. And he was recently featured in the fine art magazines Artist Magazine and Woven Tale Press, and is currently the cover feature story in Rivertowns magazine locally. This year, Fischer was a resident at the Chautauqua Institute School of Art. His work is currently on exhibit. Well, it was until last month on exhibit at the Phillips Mill 96 Jury Art Exhibit. Welcome, Chuck Fischer, to Art Talk.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Terrific. And as usual for our audience, we're so glad you're here. Please put your questions for Chuck in the Q&A so we can find them. We definitely want to include you in the conversation. Jen, let's look at some artwork of Chuck's. Okay, Chuck, tell us what we're looking at here.
So here we're looking at a project from my early years in New York City. I moved to New York shortly after college. I first moved to Dallas after graduating from the University of Kansas, and then moved to New York in 1980. And I tried my hand at acting and waiting tables and doing the, young New York transplant from the Midwest thing. But I got connected with with the interior design world and very high-end design world in New York City. And this is one of the early projects I did. This is a painted floor, painted even though it is a wooden floor, it's painted to look like wood and like it's inlaid and it has stars. And this was for a decorator who worked at the firm Parrish Hadley, which was a very prominent firm in New York, who I really got my start with, and they gave me many projects to experiment with.
That's wonderful. I mean, it's a beautiful project. How did you create the wood grain?
The wood grains it's created by a wood graining tool, and it is a roller that is rubber, and it has ridges in it, and one just twists the wrist, and the grain appears, and then you comb the sides, and it really looks like a large kind of knotty pine.
And they're two different, or there's the stripes going across are from the actual boards.
The stripes going across are the actual boards, and then the beige color is actually just it is a pale wood grain grained in the opposite direction as the darker one you're seeing. That's easier to read.
Okay. And you were starting out, this is early on in your career,
Yes, very much so.
and you're in a magazine. That must have been incredible.
It
How
was
does the
very,
project, sorry,
yeah.
How does
Yeah,
a project like this happen? When they came to you, did they say, we want you to do X, paint the wood grain, or did you make a pitch having seen what they already had in mind?
well, I probably before this project happened, I already had relationships with the decorator, and I had I had done other projects with her, and her name is Libby Cameron. She's still very active today, and we just had similar sensibilities, and we would she just loved painted floors, and I I came up with the idea of doing, even though it's a real wood floor, it just have it totally painted to look like wood, and she loved that. And then we stenciled in this, there's a red and pink star that's at certain corners, and that was just something, it evolved. I mean, the that happened while we were on site. It just needed a little spot of color because we knew what, the fabrics that were going to go in the room.
So you were already doing perceptions and deceptions with wood grain on top of wood.
Very much so. Yes. That's,
Okay. Terrific.
yeah.
Jen, what's up next?
So here's more deception and painted mural. This is in the 18th century chinoiserie style. And this was for a different decorating firm. And I love doing research into the different styles that I would be painting in, because I just the the work, the mural had to be appropriate to the resident, had to be what the client was comfortable living with, what the decorator envisioned. And then by the time I was doing rooms of this scale and this intricacy, I had been published in a number of magazines and newspapers, and so I was given more freedom to create what I wanted to present to the client. And then I would present the client a watercolor rendering of an elevation of the room, or all four elevations of the room, so we all knew what the finished product was going to become.
I just love this. I've always loved these painted walls in homes. I mean, it's how extraordinary, and the complexity of it. How long would something like this take?
Well, this actually is what I started doing. To answer the question, I had assistants that worked with me in my studio in New York, and so I probably had two assistants on this job, and I'm sure we worked on it for at least a month, and we painted it on canvas in the studio, and then the canvas was hung as one might a wallpaper, in the room. And then I would touch in corners, over doors, paint on site, things that needed adjusting so it looked like it was painted on site.
And that's actually great because you are able to the work is then able to be preserved. If
Correct.
somebody said, yeah, that's fantastic. Has anybody taken them down and done something
Yes.
with them?
Yes. Oh, yes, definitely. And
Oh,
the other
that's
good thing is that you're not living with the client. So I got to go to my studio and work every day, and instead of, like, I think this was in California, so I would have had to have, taken assistance and been in California for at least a month, so it was better for me and you know my life, to
yeah,
be able to go to my studio in New York City.
that's wonderful. Yeah. Okay, next up, Jen.
Again, this is on Fifth Avenue in New York. It's a very formal uh, dining room, and this was interesting because the client bought antique panels. They bought three antique panels, but there were five panels that needed to be uh, you know, build to create the entire room. So I matched the exact style. of this French painter, Jean Piedmont, and on canvas with a texture, the same texture that the original panels had, and exactly matching colors. So, but totally different. That, unique subject matter. I wasn't just copying the panel. I just created um, sympathetic, figures and trees and all to make it look like it was all, a piece created, painted in the 18th century, or yeah, 18th century.
So did you find that enjoyable? I would imagine it would be technically challenging and
But it was, it was very satisfying. It was very satisfying because I had references of this. The original artist had a lot. I was able to do a lot of research, and so I had sketches of the that the original artist did from other projects from in France, in that time. So I just chose things from those sketches and then incorporated them, painted it his style in the same colors that these panels existed.
it's terrific. All right, Jen.
This is a little vignette of an American primitive style, which I sort of really became known for. Um, this is in Chatham, Massachusetts, on the Cape, and it is a dining room, and it totally surrounds the room. And I also painted this on canvas. I actually painted this on. This is a not. This isn't from my early days. This is maybe in the last 5 years or so. So I painted this actually in Bucks County, and then um, you know hung it. Well, had someone from New York come to hang it, and then finished it on site.
I love the style too. I mean, I can see, pictures like this, painted and framed, and I can't imagine living with it in your whole room. I adore the little detail of the bird's nest above the door. I mean, it must have been fun to
Mm,
come up with little visual jokes and
exactly.
delights for the person who's paying attention.
Yes. And then a little aside, what can happen working with a client, and they really wanted a scene that represented the Cape and that area of the Cape where Chatham is. And I, in one of the other walls, I painted a mill, a water, like a water wheel mill. And the husband of, of, of the clients said, there are no mills. There weren't mills here. And I was like, yes, there were. So I had to like show him my research and defend the mill. And then it was like, oh, okay. He didn't realize that there were mills a little bit inland. So
Well, that's fascinating, Chuck. So you really got into your subject matter, not just in the composition and creating a scene, but really having it reflect content that was appropriate.
yes, for this for sure.
So that goes beyond, you know, the the surface, if you will, of the decorative arts, right?
Yes, in New York, uh, this is would still be considered the decorative art, and as opposed to studio art or the fine art, the gallery scene. It's very separated still to this day. I don't always get it because I think there's such a there doesn't need to be the separation, but
Right. We
I'm
have
not
that
in
with craft
charge.
as right. We have that with craft as well. People busy making
Yes, absolutely.
distinctions.
Yeah,
And maybe
yeah.
distinctions without merit. I guess that depends on your perspective.
Right, right.
But so there are a lot of challenges in being an artist, whether a decorative artist or a studio artist, when you're working with a client, very specific a client, as opposed to, I have a dining room. I'm going to do Mills on my own wall for my sake.
Right, right.
How did you navigate that, Chuck?
How do I navigate working with the client?
Yeah.
Oh, diplomatically. And and it wasn't always easy. It wasn't always easy because there's also money involved and it, with very wealthy clientele, and you you know one is working for them. So, but also I'm an artist that came with a reputation, and they wanted me. So it was a balancing act at times. It really was, and as we get on to where I am now, that is one of the reasons that finally led me to create art just for myself. Was um, not doing it for the financial gain, and not having to do it for a specific client.
Right, right. Well, we do have a question in the Q&A. Thank you so much for that. We're going to get to it. Please, all of you join us for the conversation. Yeah, Jen, what's our question?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. So, E. Chang wanted to know had a specific question about this picture, and
Yeah.
they asked, is the far room not actually a room, but a painting? I think.
No, it's a real room, the far room, and it has very contemporary art. Um, as the piece that you're seeing through the doorway is on a far wall, and it's very contemporary. So this room itself was in much more in a traditional style.
So how would you marry that? I mean, I think it's really challenging to put two different styles together. I love it when it's done well. I would think for the artist, it's a challenge.
Well, that's not my work in the far, in the in the room through the doorway. So that was the responsibility of the decorator, how
Okay.
she was able to mix the styles. And I really wouldn't have any input into that.
So would that piece have been there before or it just,
Yes.
yeah. And did
Mhm.
you respond at all to it or
No,
you just
I didn't
said,
even
this is
see
what I'm
it.
doing?
Yeah, I'm was usually just given floor plans and elevations, or a fabric scheme perhaps, but maybe photographs. I think this was a new construction house, as I recall. So I this installation picture was in Architectural Digest. So actually, I didn't ever even see the completed house because once my work is done, I don't always get to go back.
But you're there for the installation.
I'm there for my installation, but not necessarily the house installation.
And did you do the installation
No,
or?
no, I have a, guys that are wallpaper, like very professional wallpaper hangers that also hang a lot of antique papers. So they use a little bit heavier than regular wallpaper paste, and the walls are prepared. Well, they're primed and have a one more layer of not paste, but it's kind of a glaze, and it just helps the heavy duty clay paste that is hanging the canvas, like really adhere.
Right. Okay, interesting. We love the technical stuff.
Hmm.
All right, Jim, where were we? Okay.
Oh, this is a good turning point slide. Image. This is a room that I created. Say I was the designer, the artist, and conceptualized. this room, and this was for the show house called the Kips Bay Decorator Show House that is in New York City. It's also now they've expanded to Palm Beach and Dallas, but it was the premier designer show house, actually the first, and it raises funds for the Boys and Girls Club in New York, Kips Bay Boys and Girls Club. And so I was chosen. One applies, and I was chosen and given a room. And so I created this boudoir, and they painted the walls, of course. And it's the walls actually. This is when I started bringing texture into my mural work. The zebra rug is painted. It's painted on right on into sisal, and the illusion of looking through that door, it is all painted, and the drape on the door is painted. But then I had a friend who was an artist in plaster, and then he created these rings of plaster balls, and then those were draped around the room as the accent on the cornice. So this was a very it got a lot of attention. It got a lot of attention in the press, and it was featured in the New York Times and House Beautiful. And this was the design directors and the owner of Brunswick and Fee responded to the room so much they asked if I would create a collection of designs inspired by this room for them. And I'd never designed wallpaper or fabric, but I said, absolutely, yes, I would.
That's your philosophy, isn't it, Chuck, to say yes?
It is absolute, yes. Just say yes and you'll figure it out. And they were of course, very helpful. I mean, I had to learn repeats, and this is pre-computer. So it was all just done by hand, and it was very exciting.
That's
I did a
cool.
lot of research in the libraries, and just looked at a lot of a lot of wallpaper and a lot of fabrics, and visualized how things repeated and half drops and straight
Right.
across. And they were also so experienced that they when I would bring something in, if they saw maybe an area that was heavier, that might not balance, they were very instructive and showing me why. And then I just picked it up. It just came very naturally.
That's cool. So in this picture with this curtain,
Hmm.
that's really sort of foreshadowing
It is.
for your work now. I mean, kind of fun how
Yeah.
appropriate that is. And to Emily's question earlier, um, we have how much of this second room is false or not false,
Oh,
but
okay. Everything, yes. The everything that's blue, and the railing, the stars are projected from a little light machine. So it's just painted on paper, and it was a closet, and I took the door off, and kind of a large sheet of paper, and it created the backdrop. And then there is a real stone ball. The ball is made of stone, which mimics the the round designs that are kind of in the corner of the mural. And then there is a real lantern in there with a candle.
okay. I think I might have already asked Diane's question, Jen. Let me know. Yep, we're good. Okay, Diane, sorry about that. Thank you so much for your question. What is next?
So this is a room, which was actually our living room, in New York using my collection for Brunswick and Fee fabrics and wallpapers. So this was the collection that, or part of the collection that was inspired by that room.
It's a lovely room. I mean, I love how the traditional fabric designs in the wallpaper, the fabrics are still so are used so airily and fresh. You know, it has like a clean, open feeling, and yet I love fabrics, Chuck, and
Yes.
I love every kind. And you don't get to see great uses of these glorious, you know, really sumptuous fabrics very often in
And
a
they were screen printed in Italy, and with their multiple screens. I mean, they were very expensive fabrics even at the time. Um, so the detail, it, because my hand then, it was very painterly, and I mean, you could, the brush strokes were there. There was a little tips in gold, and quite detailed and beautifully produced.
Mhm. Love it. I've seen their fabrics in person. They are gorgeous. Jen, I think we have a question.
Yes, we do. Diane wants to know, how does your license for fabrics and wallpaper work? Are you paid once or do you get residuals?
Very good question. And I learned a lot from my early days in licensing to things that came later. This was I did get a royalty, but I also in with Brunswick and Fee, I sold them the rights to the art so um, they can reintroduce it or something if they, you know, it's been discontinued because this was in the 90s that this that this first came out. It was on the market for a long time, and I continued to receive a residual, and that was negotiated. I had a lawyer at the time, and then I had a licensing agent who started negotiating different kinds of deals where I would hold the copyright to the artwork and really just license the designs. And then, of course, you know, get a residual. But sometimes there would be like in publishing and other businesses, there would be an advance I would receive, but the residuals would be paid after the advance was paid off.
Okay. I mean, I think how being a business person doesn't always go with art training. They're not doing, you know, MBA type classes in art
No.
school. Was that challenging for you, Chuck, to learn the skills, get the right people, know that you have to get the right people to help you?
I knew I had to spend some money to make some money, you know, to find the right people. I did have a good lawyer. I was surrounded by other independent business owners. The, you know, decorators themselves are relatively small businesses, although they can be very, you know, they can much larger than mine, say, but I had mentors that I could ask questions, and I wasn't afraid of the the business side of it. I mean, I fortunately like both sides. I didn't want to spend too much time in it. I always, you know, I'd have an accountant and a bookkeeper when things were really busy. But otherwise, you know, I just handle, you know, the books and the incoming and outgoing money. And like I said, I had assistants, but they were independent contractors, so I never had salaried assistants.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot to run the business for anybody and then also to be producing, you know, the creative work. That's a lot of time in.
It is, and I actually uh, got I was very busy for a time and very much, you know, in demand, and I would be doing much more administration than actually being, you know, in the job painting that were the assistants. So I was guiding them more than painting with them, and that didn't please me a lot. So I really pulled back and found that it wasn't just it didn't necessarily mean that my company, which was called Chuck Fischer Studio, was actually, netting more money. It just meant that there was a lot more work, but I could have less work and still sort of net the same amount, which was much better for me.
Oh, wow.
I
That's
got
pretty. That's the business sense right there.
yeah.
Less work, same money.
Yeah, just like having a larger gross doesn't always mean that you're netting a larger amount.
Right. All right, let's look at some of your tableware.
Okay. So this was for my first collection for Lenox. It's called British Colonial, and it's still available. It is one thing led to the next, which is way my career has gone. Lennox, the design director at Lennox, saw my collection at Brunswick, and they wanted a tropical collection, and they felt my hand was right for that, and my color sense was, and so they approached me if I'd be interested in creating a collection for them, and of course I was.
You said
So
yes.
yes, I said yes. But I mean, I said yes to, they didn't just come, like hand me the collection to design. They asked if I'd be interested, and then would I prepare designs for them for the meeting, for a meeting. And then I spent a lot of time creating different tabletop designs in many different styles, which I presented to them. And then we ended up going back to the tropical collection, but yeah, it was a process. It didn't just happen with, like one phone call.
I can imagine. Yeah. And what I love is that this very pretty, evocative collection can go right into the rooms that we've seen.
Yes, yes, it can.
Works.
Yes, true. And it's a mix and match collection. There are actually three distinct collections within it. This the It's called British Colonial, but there are three collections within, but they can all mix and match. And it was a new technology for Linux, where it has a gold rim that can actually go in the dishwasher. And before that, you porcelain wasn't able to go into the dishwasher with gold.
Right. Right. And their gold rim is a classic.
Yes.
Yep. Let's see the next slide, please, Jen. We've got another take on tableware.
Yes, this is my second collection for Linux called Mosaico d'Italia, inspired by travels to Italy and the mosaics that I saw there, and the architecture, and the cypress trees and the fruits, and
Oh,
in very, to me, Italian colors. And it happened to just hit. One never knows when collections are presented at market whether the buyers from the department stores, where the that's the Lennox's, main clients, whether they were going to pick it up. I mean, you just had no idea. And I was fortunately just kind of right on trend, and it was picked up by a lot of places, and it was very successful.
lovely. Jen, I think we've got a question in the chat. We love to have your questions. Please put them in the Q&A so we can find them more easily.
Yes, Diane wants to know, do you think the Kips Bay room got you the big initial exposure for these partnerships, or was it your relationships with designers and early publications?
As far as the licensed designs, as far as product design goes, that was the key. Even though I did have the publicity that, so my name was already out there in the design world as an artist. So, but that room itself, because of it's being featured in the Times and House Beautiful and Brunswick responding to it. And then Brunswick used one of my designs in an ad. It just like, it's sort of, snowballed into that leading to the next in product design. So it got a lot of much more exposure than a mural would get, because maybe the client and their friends are the only ones that see the mural, unless it happens to get published. But by no means does everything get published. So yes, it was very instrumental.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah. Jem, next slide, please.
This is one of the renderings I was talking about. This is a little watercolor I would do for a client. This was for a room in in Nashville.
Lovely. I think we have a couple of these.
Do we? Yeah.
There we go.
Yes. Right. This was for a powder room.
So so we're looking at the grid.
And yes, that would have been like a painted trellis that would give the illusion that you're looking through it to the water, and that's an island in the distance.
And then you have that lovely
and then there's the trompe-like curtain, just to give the illusion of the openness of a window.
right. Okay, and then Jem, we had the next one.
And this was a design for a dining room, and it was inspired by these exotic birds.
Love the birds. Okay, and then I think we're back to some tableware or housewares.
So this is a continuation of the British colonial collection for Lenox. It was successful enough that they expanded into giftware, and so it's teapots and creams and sugars and salt and pepper and cookie jars, canisters, and this actually building. I built little models of these little huts that you might see down below. That is the cream and a sugar and the canister. I was building these out of cardboard and painting them in my studio, and at the exact same time, I had been sending out a book proposal I had based on those renderings that you saw before. And when a publisher came to my studio to discuss, he didn't like my idea, but he liked my artwork. He didn't think I had the right book in mind, but he saw these three-dimensional pieces I was working on building out of cardboard. And it just out of the blue, to me, out of the blue, he said, "Have you ever thought about creating a pop-up book?" And I said, "No, but I would." Because I was collecting pop-up books at the time. There were some beautiful pop-up books this was around 2000, and pop-up books were very it was like art books. I mean, a friend of mine, Robert Sabuda, did these beautiful books just in white paper and just with one or two simple colors. And I had already started collecting them, so I was familiar with pop-up books, but had never thought about creating them myself. But this publisher, Rizzoli, a division of Rizzoli, had recent success with some pop-up books, and I came up with my first design. My first idea was Great American Houses and Gardens, which they liked, and then I did a pop-up book of the White House. for them. And then I got a new agent and changed publishers, and Little Brown and Company became my publisher from like
S-
my
Did you
last book.
enjoy this process, the pop-up book? I mean, that's such a
Loved
specific.
it.
Would you like to do a pop-up book? I mean, it is a kind of a left field approach.
It is, but he put me together with a paper engineer who was based in England. And because I'm not a paper engineer, so I did not do the paper engineering.
Okay.
I conceived, I conceived in Sketch a pop-up, but I didn't engineer the pop-up. So the paper engineer would take my sketches, make them three-dimensional in white paper, and then of course I would paint everything um, to create the pop-ups.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So
Wow.
here is, we're getting close to where we are today, where I am today. This was a card company that I founded with my pop-up friend, Robert Sabuda, who's a very well-known pop-up book creator. And we decided we wanted to create a stationary pop-up stationery company of historic buildings. And they would be laser cut, and they were we concentrated on the college market, like every college campus has its main building. So we went to trade shows and sold to colleges, and then this is Monticello. So you know these cars would be sold in their gift shop, but it was a very challenging business. We raised money on Indiegogo, so we had some seed money that got us going. And we had money to go to a couple trade shows, and we got orders. The product was beautiful, but we could not get the volume. We just, with paper, with cards, and we were competing against, the big card companies, because we were all at the same trade shows. And ours was very specific to architecture, uh, very well received. It's like, they're charming, they're very pretty, but it was just too much work. It was too
Yeah.
much work, and we couldn't make any money at it. So after 2 years, it really took 2 years from the beginning to the end. I just Robert sort of dropped out a little bit before the end, and I finished all the orders that we had received and closed the business. And I can't do this anymore. So it was just too much because the goal was to make money and have beautiful work, but it was a business. So I ended up, it was just running a business. And there were once the design was made, and even the manufacturers in Asia they had so much, like computer generated equipment and everything, that they could easily just take sketches and create. So there wasn't even that much design work that went into it. And so that was when I decided I need to get into my studio and figure out what I would like to do, what art is inside me. And I first went to the Art Students League, and I was mentored by Bruce Dorfman, who still teaches there. Um, and he is a abstract mixed media artist who's been showing in New York since the 1960s. He's in his 80s now, and it was the best thing that I could have ever done. I took some pieces early pieces, because you had to audition for him. You had to really, to get accepted into his studio, because it wasn't really a class. It was a one-on-one, even though there were more people in the room. So it was he was mentoring you very specific to what work you were working on. And that's when I started really adding dimension to my work using different materials. And this was an early piece from, so that was in 2015, I believe, when I started going, or 16 at the Art Students League. And this was an early piece that I created it at that time. And Bruce was also very encouraging about applying to calls, artist calls. And this was at the Butler Museum of American Art in Youngstown, Ohio. They have a mid-year juried show, and Bruce thought that I should apply, and and I got in. So I learned through other artist friends I was making there at the Art Students League and Bruce himself, that how one applies to call, where you get the information about applying to calls, and just doing it. So it was this was an early piece. So you can see there's less depth, but very geometric.
Very geometric, abstract.
Mhm.
So apparently a big departure from the very traditional work you were doing as a decorative artist.
Correct.
But your colors, I mean, I think we recognize your color palette.
Right.
Uh,
Yes. I made a very conscious decision not to do painterly work, because one of the things, and not to sketch, because I did so much sketching before, and so I just started trusting my intuition and trusting what was inside and the materials that I had, and started developing. I found out that I could paint on aluminum, and it would give a little extra, depth, and a little extra, sparkle of color, of metal, and then all the textures. So this is um, a work in fairly early, but I this was in I called it spectrum compositions, and I used the primary and secondary colors through a series of works. And this is my interpretation, actually, at the time, of the gay pride flag. And I don't know if it's this piece or one that's sort of similar to it, is I have two pieces in the permanent collection at the LGBTQ Center in Cleveland, Ohio. So this was another piece that was accepted at another year at the Butler and won second place. This is called Sophisticated Lady.
So Chuck, I mean, this is really a big break in a way. I don't,
Hmm.
you're going in a totally new direction.
Hmm.
Were you trying to leave that behind? You said you didn't want to sketch, you didn't want to pre-think it too much. It was more improvisational.
Yes.
I can see that the work that you were doing as a decorative artist and in these collaborations with the companies and the interior decorators, I mean, that was a very rigid work environment in many
Right.
ways, I think. Yeah. So, what does it feel like to, is this a palette cleanser for you moving forward?
Oh, yes. I mean, I really, when I first went into the studio not knowing what I was going to do, I mean, it was like it was a bit scary, like looking at a blank page, and you know. But I also asked a friend who was she was teaching in San Francisco. I said, "What would you say to your first years?" She was a sculptor. She was the head of the sculpture department. And I said, "What would you say to your like first year students?" And she said, "Well, just work in something that you've never done before, just." I said, "Well, I think I want to do like dimensional stuff." And she said, "Well, then just do dimensional work." And I wanted to use accessible materials, and I get all my materials at either, a big box Home Depot kind of store or art supply store, lumber yards. And I don't use found objects, I just say discarded objects. So it's all ready, available materials. This was the first piece that was part of that was accepted at Phillips Mill, and it sold.
And it's all that's fabulous. That's a bit different from what people think of the Phillips Mill show or what they're expecting.
Yes. Well, I think that's so true, and being an abstract artist and living in Bucks County is there are more and more of us, I believe, and it was well received, and I've been accepted in other shows in Bucks County and other places that might have a more traditional historical, you know, bent to the art of the region, but you know, the abstract art has its place, I believe, and it fits very well in people living with it as out here as well.
And I think it can go in the traditional architecture we have as well. I
I
mean,
agree. Yes, definitely.
blends so well with a modern look.
Right.
Jen, I think Paul's got a question for us, and appreciate all the questions in the Q&A.
Yes, Paul asked, why do you think your recent artwork veered into abstraction and without a formal image at the start?
Without a formal image, was that
Yes.
what he said?
Mhm.
Well, again, it was making that break, Paul, from my traditional work into letting the feelings that were within me the guide what I was doing. So I I think, I mean, this is to me like very much architectural. It has a relationship to what my interests are, and it also, I feel like the depth and the we were talking about the mystery that it can create, that it being an abstract work, it just was that's what is my way of expressing what I'm feeling. And I feel like I do a lot, I just sort of get in that zone and trust that it's eventually going to become a work of art. And so here's one of the early pieces where I started. I started thinking, can I marry the early painterly work, which enjoy? I mean, I enjoy it, but can I incorporate that in abstract work? And I feel like it's working for me, and people are responding to it, which is very encouraging. But I'm just doing it because I feel like that through line. I don't know that I've talked about it so much tonight, but I just feel like one project leads to the next project, leads to the next project. And the influence and the opportunities I've had, the places I've been, the travel I've done, the homes that I've been in, the people I've met, it's all being expressed now abstractly, but with some painterly elements that are recognizable, relatable, I believe, but also to have the viewer question, like, is why? And so here I also occasionally put in vintage figures, because I mean I see environments when I'm creating this work. I don't see them as like a. Some people see an urban environment. Some people see windows, skyscrapers. A collector just said she saw books. books were everywhere in the work. And I was like, oh, well, that's great. I love that she saw that. And that's what she brought to it. And here's
Well,
this is a variety of pieces that are in my studio.
so Chuck, we really, I mean, you've taken us on a journey tonight of your work where we started with those beautiful, stunning murals and gone through the evolution through the commercial products, which are still so very artistic. And yet now we're in an abstract architectural environment. I feel like in the middle there you had a palette cleanser and now you're integrating.
Yes.
Fair?
Fair, definitely. And still inspired by research that I do. This was very much inspired by the Russian constructivists, um, even in their color palette, and just had related to it. And then I went a deep dive into that period of art, and then the Bauhaus has an influence, and I believe this is Liszewski, who's I just saw a piece of his work, and then this was really directly inspired by it. But if you saw that original painting next to this, I hope you'd see a relationship, but it's like totally my interpretation. And this is a relatively flat piece, even though there is some dimension to it.
Well, there's so many different planes happening. That's what I think about how it's flat and yet the planes, in this detailed slide that Jen has pulled up for us, the lady is
Right.
sitting on, I mean, the angles are really happening, which I think gives, a tension, a drama to
Yes. Yes.
work.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, we have so many more works to look at. I think that means that people should look you up and find you. You have a show coming up at the Delaware Valley University. Is that right, Chuck?
Yes, next fall. But before that, I have a show at Penswood Gallery in Newtown in the spring. And right now, I have a couple pieces at New Hope Arts that works in wood. So
That's terrific. Well, we so appreciate you sharing your work with us. Thank you for
thank
coming on
you.
to our talk.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Uh, Thank you also in the audience for joining us. We're taking a holiday break in December, but we're back in January with Curly Holton, who's been collected by the Michener Museum, has juried the Phillips Mills Show. He's a painter, printmaker, and the founder of Raven Fine Art Editions. Jen McHugh is our technical director. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Deanna Botcher is our producer. I'm Laura Womack. Good night.